Hello and welcome to the Berkcast, the How to Train Dragon podcast. I'm your host, HC, who almost forgot this was the Berkcast and I was about to say Outcast. With me are
Rush 2112.
And Wolf.
And today, I guess we can call this a juicy topic because people might have a lot to say about this one. You can thank Wolf for thinking it up. I totally put the blame on the person who came up with the idea because then nobody will have to do something to me. And today we're asking the question, are Astrid and Heather Mary Sue's? So before we begin, I guess we can just talk about what Mary Sue means, what's the definition of it, what examples we will give to a Mary Sue. Does somebody wants to start?
I guess since I came up with the topic for the show, I guess I can if you want.
Okay, go ahead. Go right ahead.
Well, simply put, a Mary Sue is an idealized and seemingly perfect fictional character. Reading off of the definition that everyone else has given it on Wikipedia, at least anyways. And I would agree, it's an author insert, in my opinion, and the author insert is generally
Omnipotent.
Yeah, and good at everything that they need to do, even though those things have no real connection with one another. They're just good at essentially everything. And as the definition I read off says, they're, if not perfect, they're damn near it. And it's an author insert generally because the character is meant to be in some kind of romantic relationship with the main characters. If not one of them, all of them, just about. If you want history on the term Mary Sue, if I'm not mistaken, it came from Star Trek originally, and it was popularized there. And because many people, at least in the fan fiction scene, because many people would write fan fiction scenes with author inserts who were female, that would generally tend to get in relationships with Kirk, Spock, and another person whose name I can't remember. Star Trek fans will eat me alive for that, but
Bones, Sulu,
I'm
Chekhov.
not a big Star Trek person.
Oh.
Possibly. Don't know.
I just know their names. I don't know the fan fiction. God forbid.
Same here.
Yeah, I haven't read the fan fiction myself. I'm just familiar with the term.
Also, let's give a little disclaimer. You may be thinking this is deja vu, which I did when we first brought up the topic, but no, we actually did a Heather episode where we brought up the idea of her being a Mary Sue, but not just saying it wasn't
or aren't.
Yeah, this is about both Astrid and Heather being Mary Sue's as opposed to a minor part of a character episode. So just putting that out there.
Yeah, that's one thing to point out. One more thing I'll add about Mary Sue's though is that it's not necessarily that they are perfect, although that's the main thing. But it's also that if the character does something wrong, if the character does something wrong or something that should have consequences and they don't suffer consequences for it, it kind of counts as well. What do you guys think? Because that's one of the definitions that I've seen.
Repeat that again for me, please.
Like that, it's not necessarily that the character, it's not always that the character is perfect, but when the character makes mistakes, he or she is not held accountable for those mistakes. Like they suffer no consequences.
It's a little bit more than that, because if you just look at it as just that, then you'll see a lot of characters being Mary Sue's when they're really not.
A lot of kids' TV shows where basically every episode is non sequitur.
Yeah.
Like actually, when I say that when I said if we can bring up examples, I probably said it once in the Outcast. In the Berkcast, sorry, man, I'm getting this switched up. But I mentioned this before on the show that I think not a DreamWorks character, but I think it's the most perfect example in recent years Moana is a Mary Sue, like in every way and shape of the form, if you ask me.
I didn't ask, but okay. I'm just
I
kidding.
haven't seen the movie, so I can't really say.
I think
it's on Netflix.
Okay,
so no, but I have seen it. And I can. Okay, how about this? Let me give you a little familiar information. My baby niece, she is turning 3 this year.
Yeah, you told. I remember that she loves this movie.
Yeah, one of her most spoken words is Moana.
Oh, that's something. But just, I'm not saying this is a bad movie by any means.
No. Yeah.
And Moana herself, if she's a Mary Sue, she's a fun Mary Sue, which is also something that we should take into account. Saying Mary Sue on a character doesn't automatically mean we hate her.
She's one of the Mary Sues that has minor flaws. So that's kind of what Wolf was saying. Damn near perfect. She does things like she picks things up pretty freaking quickly. And I know it's obviously for movie purposes, but it makes her come off.
Yeah,
she knows
she's clumsy. Like she's clumsy, and she made one mistake throughout the entire movie, which she fixed like less than 10 minutes afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she doesn't develop at all. So in my book, Mary Sue.
Mm-hmm. But yeah. So just putting it on that perspective, since we bring up all
the perfect, if you want the perfect example of what a Mary Sue is, I mean, you don't need to look very far. Twilight, Bella Swan, that is a Mary Sue, and it helps because. It helps because Twilight was originally fan fiction, if I'm not mistaken, or was that the original?
No.
50 Shades
Never mind. 50 Shades of Grey was the fan fiction. That's right.
Yeah.
I think that girl's also probably a little bit of a Mary Sue some way, but I've not touched that at all. But Bella Swan definitely comes off as a Mary Sue from Twilight. I think she definitely kind of fits that bill a little bit.
I think more in the sense that I mentioned that even that it's not that she's perfect, but whenever she does something stupid or bad or anything, she's not really held accountable for it. From what I remember from the first one, I haven't really touched the other ones because the first one was enough for me. Says the guy who loves school movies for the most part. Twilight bored me.
But I mean, I guess you can look at a Mary Sue as being someone who is, not chastised for their faults or their mistakes, right? But I would also, I'd say the bigger thing is the wish fulfillment aspect of it. That, this is a character who you're writing because you want something from it, and that's why you, the author, have inserted this character who's supposed to more or less be you. Yeah. It may not exactly be yourself. You may exaggerate some things. You may do other stuff, but it still is inherently you, and that's the big issue from it. And that's why that's why the term Mary Sue came from fan fiction first instead of like actual, fiction or canon works, right? Because it wasn't a thing that we picked up on from there. It was a thing we picked up on from fan fiction. And since we picked up on it from fan fiction, we've since started using that to look at other movies and other works that are more, like, I guess you'd say more legitimate, but fan fiction, that's kind of rude to fan fiction in a way. So, but
well, I mean, fan fictions are made, and of course we're going horribly off topic here, but fan fictions are made because of the legitimate works. So it's not really an insult to them, but yeah, it's hard to actually point out who is and who isn't a Mary Sue in canon works because at least movies, like TV shows like we're going into, maybe, especially if they're based off movies, because movies, like, they're starting the story and they're trying to make a plot point happen with a whole bunch of characters, even one character. Like, sure, maybe Moana was a little, but she had to do all that stuff. It wasn't like they added a character who literally said, hey, spoiler alert, Taka's Tafiti, right? Immediately at the beginning of the movie, it's like, let's just do that. And so, at least she had to go through something whereas a Mary Sue would have been like seeing it all along, I'm guessing, maybe. But and then also from TV shows, those are like episodic based, and maybe one episode you bring in somebody who like solves the case, like so let's say Brooklyn Nine-Nine or any of your crime TV shows. You bring in somebody who solves the case, like who's too smart for them good. That's where it's a little bit easier to see. And then in our case, where you have a movie with a bunch of characters already established, and then you have a TV show come in, and you have another character come in that just seems like they know how to do everything like that, or they already have things, going for them. That's where it's a lot easier to spot. So that's where we come to the conclusion: is our Astrid or Heather Mary Sue's? I'm gonna start with this side.
You guys
since
start this.
God forbid we go off
just
topic.
Need to.
Yeah, one thing I will add.
I just need to set one thing right. Somebody just said something about college. Hold up. You guys start. I'm listening. I'll be right there with my thoughts.
Okay.
Sorry about this.
One thing I'll add in real quick is I think it helps when, like declaring a movie character a Mary Sue or what have you. I think it helps those people make that argument when you have books to draw back from, right?
Exactly.
When the movie's based on books,
that too.
I think people feel more assured in making that criticism, even though it might not necessarily be right or wrong. They still feel more assured in making it because there's other media to draw back from as well.
Yeah, but that's why it's kind of hard to understand or to think about how HC's comment about Moana being one, because there's no like basis, there's nothing before that, so you can't say like, I mean, maybe if there's a TV show but then you have the character who already solves all the crap anyway, right? But so that's kind of where people got the Astrid being a Mary Sue thing from, because you had the books with Kamikaze, and from what I understand, because remember I wasn't on the books episode, I hadn't read the books yet, they're somewhat similar in personalities, but different as well. So if you could say, and again, haven't read the books, so this is just a saying, not exactly. You could say, they took Cammy and just made her a Mary Sue for Astrid by giving her better qualities or something like that. So, but since I haven't read the books, I will automatically say that I disagree with Astrid being a Mary Sue. As for Heather, I would say we went over this, and I think we came to a conclusion that I will wait for the rest of you to come to, because I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't heard the episode yet. It's a yes and no answer, and we can get to that again. I think Wolf, you're the one who came to that, and I agreed with you, if you remember.
Actually, I actually had a thought about it. I not said this when we talked about Heather as a character, but I did think about this before doing this episode, and I thought about something. Let's say when we really get down to it, when Riders of Berk began, when Riders of Berk began. And I'm not sure how much experience in making a TV show the writers have had before this. I don't want to claim anything, but for the sake of the argument, let's say they started on this show, and up until Heather show, they wrote on, like, the only new characters they created were bad guys. Alvin and Mildew, Savage, because Wolf loves them all so much. So basically, basic point is Heather was the first good guy character they created from scratch. Wasn't
Mucket and Bulch.
one that
I did that on purpose.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you did that on accident. Okay. The reason I was laughing is because before the Berkcast started, to listeners, he said that he took medicine that made him sleepy. So I thought that was just an effect of the medicine. Oh my god.
I mean, I'm saying on purpose. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
whether you think it was on purpose or not is entirely up for our listeners to determined.
Yeah,
but I'm
that's
saying
up
that
for
was on
debate.
purpose.
Okay.
I'm sorry. That was really funny.
Okay, but basically, like when I say the first good guy characters I created, I mean one that actually has dialogue and backstory and everything, because Bucket and Mulch, they're just people on them. There's not much to them at this point and at any point. So Hannah was the first good guys they created, which wasn't apart from the movie.
Quote
So
unquote
they
good
didn't
guy.
have the set. So we didn't have the character for her. Like how do we write Hiccup? Well, it's easy. We watch the movie. Astrid, we watch the movie, and you know. So it does seem like a bit of a safe kind of thing that this is a good to be a good guy character that goes through goes through an arc of being with the bad guys but doing it for her own reasons, and at the end of the day making amends with the heroes and everything. And like, how many shows have done this? Literally a lot of animated shows did this, a lot of movies did this, and I believe we brought up all the examples, possible examples in the previous time we talked about this. But it is interesting to think that the first good guy character created for this show
HC,
got the
I
merits to stand.
but I hear your argument, but the problem is she wasn't created for the show. She was created for 2 episodes as a plot device. If she was created for the show, hear me out, she would have been in more episodes. Unless, I mean, we're playing fast and loose with the definition of created for the show, because in my idea, created for the show, which they didn't know about Race to the Edge, so God forbid if you argue against me on that, because I couldn't bring up some sources that they had no idea what was coming up. But in my idea, in my head, created for the show means that there will be a recurring character like, as Wolf said, Mucket and Bulch, or, but so
No comment.
yeah. So in that sense, and she wasn't even for the first Heather Report, part 1, I should say. She wasn't even a good character, right? So until the very end, when we don't know if she was lying or not about her parents, but still, it's not that she was their first experiment with that in any sense. In fact, they didn't really bring in any new good characters that were recurring, that were like, as you were arguing, more foreground characters, unlike Bucket and Mulch, who are background characters by all means. We don't get that until we get to Race to the Edge, where Heather returns and she's, a good person, or even Mala or
Dagger.
Yeah, and he was also villain for most of the first part. But still,
Dagger started as a villain, though. So
yeah,
that's kind of
it's a character who turned good.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I'm saying. Like, in the sole purpose of writers of Berk, excuse me, in the sole purpose of writers of Berk, Heather is a simple 2-episode story where we see her as a Mary Sue. Now, that was the argument that I was trying not to get to, because this is kind of the conclusion we came to the Heather episode, where in writers, yes, we saw her as a Mary Sue because she only had 2 episodes and then she was gone. If you want to talk about, how everybody had the fan fiction argument for the Race to the Edge, that episode seemed like very much fan fiction, where you have the new lady interest who catches the eye of the main hero, and Astrid gets jealous. Of course, if it were true Mary Sue, maybe she would have stolen Hiccup. Who knows? And then we get to Race to the Edge, where we start to see more of her flaws. She still is good at a lot of stuff, but we at least get to see more of her character, and then we realize that she may be less of a Mary Sue than we originally thought. As for Astrid, sorry, I just want to finish my quick Astrid thought, because we're going to be spending most of the episode on Heather, I could say.
Okay, but before we do this, I just want to clarify. When I'm saying made for the show, I know that you can read it in a lot of ways, but the thing is, that when I'm saying made for the show, like I said, that the show, she was created by the show's creators, not Dean DeBlanc, not Chris Sanders, not the DreamWorks movie division. Like she was created for the show, as in she didn't appear in the movie. That's what I meant. Like, and it's not, you're saying she was only for 2 episodes. Yeah, but the 2 episodes are named after her. She's a big part of the story. They brought Mae Whitman, which is a notable voice actress. Like, people knew her when she did this, Avatar, and I think she was doing April O'Neil at this time. Yeah, I think she did. So in terms, when I say for the show, it's not necessarily how long term it was. I'm saying that the show creators created. Now, in terms of how it been in terms of the Mary Sue thing, like we said, there's the entire thing that every male character wants to hit on her, and to be honest, I'm probably going to get some flack for what I'm going to say right now. So here we go, another controversial opinion. I think Hiccup has more romantic chemistry with Heather in these 2 episodes than he has with Astrid in the entire season, which is kind of sad because I'm willing to bet the Heather thing was intentional and Astrid is his canonical girlfriend, but, whatever. But, again, it's kind of, we talked about this once, we'll say it again for the sake of this argument, and to those who didn't watch the previous episode we did, that the entire plot is kind of a Mary Sue plot. Like, they found her on a random island. She tells about how her parents were kidnapped. All the writers like her, with the exception of Astrid.
And still ends up eventually liking her by the end.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying though. There's this plot of not this character doesn't like this new character, but then they actually get to warm up to each other, and they end up being best buds and everything. And the character ends up being evil, but she's doing it in order to save her family. So we don't have to be angry at her for doing and the rest of the episodes. You know how this goes. So in this specific episode, yes, I will say she is, and that also kind of explains how she became so popular in fan fictions at that time, at least from what I've seen.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, that's exactly what I was saying, and that's the same exact conclusion we came to in Ridership Berk, because we really don't get to see much else of her other than those 2 episodes. We kind of agree that she was a Mary Sue. And I mean, I already said my part on Race to the Edge, so
I will say that Race to the Edge, I won't say that she is a Mary Sue in that one, because she does make mistakes, and other writers call her out on those every once in a while, and we actually get to know her, or other than backstory. We actually get to know her as a character, and we get to. She actually goes through an arc of the dagger is her brother, and how her trying to her betraying him, but actually also wanting to like him. And so she has a plot in Race to the Edge. Race to the Edge kind of fixes it.
I was thinking that she becomes the exact opposite of Mary Sue, where she's like completely imperfect. She complains all the time. She won't shut up about how nobody understands what it's like. Good God, shut up, woman.
I think there's a definition for that too.
Yeah.
Oh, there is. Okay.
I don't remember the name of it though, but this actually gives me a chance to elaborate on something from.
Yeah, we talked enough. Go ahead.
Absolutely.
And that's looking at Rush's explanation and your own and HC's explanation, I can sit here and say this is one of the problems I have with the term Mary Sue, is that it's too general, and there's no other term for characters who are perfect but aren't necessarily author inserts or wish fulfillment, because I don't think Heather is wish fulfillment from the writers, especially considering it's a team of writers that work on the show, not just one writer for every single episode. That's not how most shows run. And I don't think Heather is a wish fulfillment character, and I don't think Heather is a self-insertion either. But I do think in Riders of Berk, the 2 episodes we see her in, she's too good at everything she does. Sure, she gets caught, but her getting caught isn't so much a mistake as it was just Astrid being a little bit better, right? And I guess, immediately people say, well, that means she's not a Mary Sue because she's not perfect. But that's the one thing she wasn't all that good at. We see her do dragon riding, something that our villains at the time can't really copy or do. And she does most of it with very little effort on her part, just listening to people, and then she immediately gets it. She's good at sneaking around for the most part. She's good at befriending Stormfly, Astrid's own dragon. She's good at everything she does to the point where it just seems way too easy for her to be able to do it. And that's kind of my biggest problem with Heather from Riders of Berk. And it's that perfection that, made me label her Mary Sue, for not because that's what she is necessarily, but because lack of a better term, to be honest. There is no term, like I said, there is no term for a character who is just too good at everything our main cast is still working at being better at. She's too good at it way too quickly, and she just comes off as too likable and too perfect to all the rest of our main cast for the most part.
So
again, labeled as Mary Sue for lack of a better term.
To your point, and I brought this up too, and I actually want to say, what if we could change the definition of Mary Sue to be a plot device, a character plot device? Because you're right, she technically isn't an author insert. They all had, even though they all list, most of the episodes are written by one person on the team, they still have to go through all of the storyboarding and approval. So You're completely right. It may not be an author insert, but she's still a plot device or a character that drives the plot.
That's something though.
And I know.
Think about it.
She's not a Maltese Falcon.
She's not a writer.
She's not a MacGuffin. But maybe she is.
No.
She's a Mary MacGuffin. There we go. New term.
Mary MacGuffin.
Do you like that?
Have a what I want to say though is, but you're saying yourself in that the writers didn't necessarily insert themselves into this character. At the same time, how can we be sure? And this, for all we know, this could have been one of the writer's daughter, or one of the writers related. We don't know. We don't know for sure unless one of them comes out and says no. And also, I think isn't Heather kind of a random for this time period?
I'm sorry, you cut out.
Say again.
Isn't Heather a bit of a name for this time period? It's too much of a modern name, isn't it?
I mean, maybe.
I guess it's not Viking inherently, considering some of the other names, but
it depends on where she came from.
Out of the ordinary, I mean, I don't think. You're not going to walk around in today's times finding someone named Fish Legs, but Astrid isn't exactly, an uncommon name. People do have it, and there are people who walk around in today's times with the name Astrid.
Yeah, again, though, not, when you think about that characters in this show and this universe have, like Mildew or Savage or Bucket or Hiccup or Fish Legs, and then all of a sudden you meet one, or Rafnat for this thing, or Valka, and then you, hey, what's your name? I'm Heather. Huh? I don't know. Maybe it's just
I get where you're coming from, but it's not an inherent problem or issue that I see with anything.
Oh, no, it's not. No, it's not a problem. I'm just saying because I'm not sure how much did you hear before you told me to repeat myself. But when you were saying this is not a writer insert, we can't really be sure unless a writer comes out and denies this. So maybe one writer do something nice for his daughter or his niece or anything who is named Heather, because the writers for the show exist in this current world. So I don't know, everything is a possibility. We can't really say we know for a fact it's not a writer insult. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that you could always say, as a writer, you can always deny it, but it could be a subconscious insert. Like, you can never really get down to the bare facts unless they outwardly did it on purpose and they are willing to admit it. So that's just kind of a unfortunate truth there. I mean, I agree with your argument. It could have been that, but that the idea of a writer of the TV show like that adding their cousin or their niece or whatever into a TV show about, with a whole bunch of other people, I don't like that. I mean, it's very possible, but I mean, if they were able to get away with that just bothers me.
Like I said, we
here's
can
the
be
thing.
sure.
You're focusing a lot on self-insertion, and that's not the big thing of the definition of Mary Sue for me. The big thing for me is wish fulfillment. That's the big part of the definition that I think should be focused on for Mary Sue, because that's one of the defining character traits for Mary Sue's is that wish fulfillment. And I don't feel
and that's
Heather is entirely that, but again, you're right. There's no way I can prove that unless all of the writers who worked on the show, or specifically the writers who worked on those episodes, come out and say, no, she wasn't that. Mistakes were just made. And I think that's one of the reasons why we see her brought back for Race to the Edge, right? Is because they realized this character, we didn't do her well. We can do better. Can we bring her back in a meaningful way and do something more meaningful with her in Race to the Edge, since we have this third season now that's going to go on for a lot longer? And they did just that, and I think they did a lot better with her too, right?
And and that's something though, when you say that people not to say that the writer, but understand the argument in the 2 episodes she's in. Heather was supposed to be that new character that the viewers project themselves onto. It's not the first time it's been done in anime. There's this one character that's like, that's you. That's that's your getaway into this world. You could make the again. Nothing confirms this. I'm just saying you can look at it this way. It's not out of the equation.
It's not, but that's a low probability because the characters have such great flaws altogether that you could really relate to any of them already. And the fact that they're adding this perfect girl in there, definitely really lowers the chance of them just saying, hey, this is a new character that we're just going to project, that you can relate to, and she's only in for 2 episodes. Bye. It's like, that just seems a little off-putting to me.
I mean, I guess, she does ask a lot of questions of our main cast. I guess you could see her as an audience surrogate, but I don't think that's what her intention was.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't think her intention was Mary Sue either, to be honest. I think it just came across that way because, again, everything she was doing, she was just extremely good at.
That's why I'm saying the new term, Mary MacGuffin. She was good at everything, but she wasn't an author insert, but she was still a plot device. Mary MacGuffin. I'm adding that to Wikipedia.
You could just say plot device, not Mary MacGuffin. I don't think they're going to accept that one.
Nope, they will.
And I could see Heather being a plot device.
No, let's start a poll for this.
Oh no. Let's come up with a better name.
I look up Urban Dictionary and it says
if
July
you want a
13th.
Good name, PerfectPatty. There you go. It keeps up with the alliteration a little bit.
Fine. But the
at least it keeps up with alliteration somewhat.
July 13th word of the day for Urban Dictionary is big dick energy. So hold on.
For the love of God.
Perfect Patty. Oh, great. We can add that word. Word? Okay.
What are we doing?
Why are you adding it to Urban Dictionary? This should be being added to TV tropes.
Oh, crap. You're right. Okay, fine. Let's go there then.
Actually, okay. You know what?
Moving on to Astrid.
She's not a Mary
moving on
Sue.
to Astrid,
she has too many flaws, and she's definitely not a writing insert.
Well, then let's talk about that.
I know. I was just kidding.
The movies, but what are her flaws that you see?
I want to say that I think in the first movie, she is. Everything else, not so much.
How so?
Okay.
At least
And
looking
I
at the
actually thought
first
about.
movie.
Okay, so first movie, I say that Astrid is a Mary Sue, and I'll say this. This movie, for all intents and purposes, is pointed out. We see the events through Hiccup's perspective. So for first, who Hiccup has a crush on? Astrid. So of course, in his mind, she's perfect. But you want more proof of that? Fine, I have more. Let's look at all the dragon training lessons. Okay, Hiccup is a klutz. We know that one. Fishlegs is too busy with the facts and that he knows about dragons. Snotlout constantly tries to hate on Astrid, which leads to him messing up, and the twins are always fighting. Who is the Viking that always shines in the class, that always never gets her shield blown up, that manages to beat for Stormfly when they're in the ring with her, who always gets a hit on a dragon? Who's the Viking that does that? That's right, Astrid. She's the only one that doesn't have a visible flaw to her. And even when she does, which is not listening, which is being pissed at Hiccup for one, you can justify that. So it's not much of a flaw. If anything, you kind of get her point. But at the same time, that anger also goes away when Hiccup takes her out flying, and then she's like, okay, I'm on Hiccup's side now. So and again, I don't want to say that she's a prize in the first one, because that will do it will kind of do a disservice for her, because she is a good character beside that, and she's fun without Hiccup and everything. But for all intents and purposes, this is just another prize for Hiccup. Let's be real here. When you summarize the movie up for someone who hasn't seen it, you can do it without even bringing mention to Astrid. So in my opinion, in the first one, she is a Mary Sue, but again, like, it does fixes up when the franchise keeps going, specifically in the TV show.
Not looking at the TV show, just
once
the two
again, we're
movies for
playing
Astrid's character.
fast and loose with the definition of Mary Sue.
What do you think then?
The second movie, like, she is useful. She's not pointless, but she doesn't really given much to do like in the first one for me to say if she's a Mary Sue or not.
She makes the biggest mistake in the movie. She tells Drago about Berk, further, I guess, speeding up his attack on Berk.
Well, you could make that argument, but in her mind, she was trying to discourage Drago, which could have gone either. But
it doesn't matter what's on her mind. Mary Sue's actions are not what they think is best that are perfect. I mean, there's nothing about what they think, because they're just mindless drone inserted by the author. Wink, wink, Wolf.
A Mary Sue wouldn't have made that mistake. They would have said the exact right thing that needed to be said there to dissuade Drago from attacking anything. Right?
Right.
Okay, fair point.
Didn't do that. She made the mistake assuming that this would work against him, that intimidating Drago would work, and it didn't. And I can see where you're coming from on the first movie, too. To a degree.
And HC, I guess you could. It's kind of hard to explain the first movie without Astrid.
You can disagree with me.
No. I mean, I do disagree with you, but I want to say something. Like, you said that you can kind of shorten the movie without Astrid, and I feel like that's not entirely true. You don't have to mention the romantic flight, but I feel like you have to mention that she's the first person that he turns.
It's important.
It's important.
Because she is that surrogate. Because she is the surrogate for the village. She is the representation of the entire village in one character. You have to have that because, again, without that being able to turn Astrid, Hiccup wouldn't have that fake confidence to confront Stoic.
Without her, he would have left.
Yeah. Well, not just that, right? Because he was able to turn and change Astrid's mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's able to. That gives him a confidence that if I can change her mind, I can change my father's mind. I can change the village's mind.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who's older, who understands that, for those of us who were older who saw the movie, we understood that's not quite how the world works. Generally, when people get older, they're even more set in their ways than someone who is young is, right? And that's an important distinction to make, and that's something that Hiccup wouldn't necessarily have learned by this point, potentially. And it's okay for him to make that mistake and assume that I can do this, I can change my father's mind, I can change the village mind, when look at it from the outside in, we know, no, that's never going to happen. You're not going to be able to do that as easily as you think. You might get a few, but you're not going to get them all. And Stoic's probably going to be the hardest one of all. And case in point, he proved that very well. He was. It took his son almost dying before he was willing to change his mind. So Astrid is important to the story, because without it, we wouldn't have Hiccup.
She's important. She's important to the big picture. But let's try and really rush through the entire plot of the first movie. Okay, we have a Viking named Hiccup who is not very good at killing dragons. One day he comes across a wounded dragon. He studies him, finds out that the dragons are not necessarily evil, befriends them and pretty much goes against the village and his father. And eventually he ends up changing their perspective. Done.
You didn't. Well, if that's the point, you don't even need to mention his father. You can just say his village, because his father's in the village. I mean, if you're gonna shorten it that much, well, we already know the first film anyway. We already talked about it. The second film's more of a coming of age. The first film is just a boy finding his place in the world. So you don't even need to mention. You don't need to mention anything other than that, really. So it's like, if we're going to shorten it down that much. But my point was that if you're arguing the whole Astrid is not important to the story thing, by saying you can take her out of the story by shortening it.
I'm not saying she's not important to the story. I didn't say she's not important to the story. I just said that you can tell the entire plot of the movie without mentioning her. That she's not the... Yeah.
Which I know you can't, but like it's funny that you can do that with about any of those characters as well. So that's kind of why.
Obviously, I'm not saying she's the only one. I'm just saying that you can do this. That she's not like, I'm saying this not in terms of a Mary Sue, but as in terms of and one of Hiccup's prizes.
Well, see,
in that sense.
That's why I thought it was kind of weird, because I thought you were using it as an argument to your Mary Sue, but it shouldn't be used as an argument to Mary Sue. Okay.
So no, it's not an argument for the Mary.
So what HC is trying to say is that the first movie should be shorter, because most of it's not important.
Yeah.
Oh, for the love of God, I say that.
Well, okay.
That's the takeaway from here, folks.
That's
Go
the
ahead,
takeaway.
Yell at HC in the comments. We will yell at him later off Berkcast.
Don't
No, don't do that.
Yell at HC and yell
at HC because he called Astrid a prize.
This is true.
For the love of God.
Messing with HC aside, right?
You know.
Jack's Link's Beef Jerky presents Messing with HC. Okay.
One day.
Messing with HC aside.
Yeah. So
Wolf agrees with me. What do you have to say?
What? Wolf doesn't agree with you.
On the Mary Sue argument, crying out loud, that out of all the writers, she's the only one that doesn't have a flaw.
What? She has plenty of flaws. What the heck are you going on, HC? Hold on. Wolf, Wolf will honestly... Wolf will say this more eloquently, so I want to get this out first, so I don't have to follow him, if I can.
What are your thoughts on what her flaws are?
So, we can obviously get on her anger. She's all...
Which, again, I justified.
Yes, so she's angry, and... Okay, so let me go over the whole... beginning, my whole argument.
Flaw?
Yes, it is. It clouds judgment, makes you see things you can't see. Which is why when she is given no choice but to fly on Toothless, she can't be angry because she's scared. She's not angry. She gets scared. And then, anger clouds judgment. Anger leads to fear. Fear leads to hate. Hate leads to something else. That was completely wrong, but whatever. So, okay, let me go back from the very beginning, forgetting all of the arguments we just had. So, we bring up the beginning. Yes, she is the focus of... I think my dog's snoring. Sorry. We're bringing up the beginning of the movie. She is obviously Hiccup's love interest. And we have her being part of the fire brigade. She doesn't actually... In fact, coincidentally enough, King of the Wilder West just did a response on this the other day about how Astrid didn't hate Hiccup. She just saw him as not even an acquaintance, as just another villager. So she really doesn't actually get into that anger until he starts, interrupting her.
Winning.
Yeah. Well, no, not even. Just stay out of her. So, he's just an annoyance.
He beats her at her own game.
Well, no, before that, he just gets in the way.
This is true.
So that's when she starts to be annoyed by him. And then he starts winning, and then she gets angry. Stay out of my way, I'm winning this thing. Or son of a half-troll munch bucket, whatever that insult is.
And also...
almost taking Hiccup's head off with an axe. But, so she gets that, she's angry, and then how about this? If she was a Mary Sue, she would have known all along that dragons were right. I'm just kidding. That's saying a little bit far, but she would have known that dragons are good the entire time. No. So she follows Hiccup, threatens him, and then she does, in the end, try to protect him, but that's just because that's her instinct. I'm for all of the, theories where she's just doing what she was trained to do and protect her village, and Hiccup, albeit annoying, is one of her villagers. So, her fellow villagers, so she protects him, but still. And what does she do? What's the first thing she does after Hiccup separates her from Toothless? She runs back to tell the village. It's not, hey, you know what, maybe you're right, I should go with you. She has honor, and that's actually, you could say that's a flaw in the terms of trying to prove that dragons are good. Her honor to her village is against what the plot wants. A Mary Sue would have seen it. I'm arguing Mary Sue would have seen it immediately after that. It's like, okay, I trust Hiccup, let's go with it. So I know her anger is, at this point, she's confused. She's not angry anymore. She's confused. Then Hiccup kidnaps her. She does see the way. And then we get into basically, what does she do then? She's not a vocal supporter of Hiccup. She just lets him do his own thing. Would a Mary Sue try to do more or not? I don't know. Again, we're playing fast and loose with the definition, as we always do here on the Berkcast. So, I just like how we all agree on that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's no denying.
For once, I'm right about something. Definitely not a Mary Sue myself. So let's see, where else does she go? So she stops Hiccup from doing that, and then we get to the cliff scene. Now, I do want to say that is a close... I will agree, that could be seen as a close one, because she says kind of the exact things Hiccup needs to hear, which is making Hiccup explain himself. But that's not honestly saying the exact thing. She just wants to know. That's a general curiosity, I feel. So that happens, and then she's flying with Hiccup most of the time, and then she almost gets sucked up by the big dragon, the Red Death. Mary Sue would have flown perfectly, 10 out of 10. And then there's not really much left of the story to her. So I there's just all these different parts with a voice crack in there that could be just seen as, it's not like she knows exactly what to do. She's not doing it perfectly. And on bringing up Wolf's point, she's not an author insert. Wink, wink.
As far as we know.
As far as fine.
That was never the intent.
Unless Dean or Chris come out and say something different.
Yeah. And I
She was supposed to be Dean's the entire time. Oh
Well,
god,
so
I knew
HC,
it.
when you, yeah, HC, when you were doing your thing with the university or whatever, I was talking to Wolf how Astrid, since I hadn't read the books, Astrid is some form of kamikaze.
Yeah, I heard that.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
you could that could actually strengthen the argument how she was kamikaze but better. But I don't know how kamikaze is, so I can't really even argue against or for that.
I
So
like for again I
I'm not
only
getting
read
into
three of
that.
the books and
I don't feel
Kamikaze
she
is
is.
only one of people.
I've said in the past, I don't feel that Astrid is kamikaze at all, really. She's
Okay.
vastly
No,
different.
in terms of yeah, they are different personality wise. To be honest, when we meet Kamikaze in the more flood, she's a lot more flood than Astrid is because Astrid in the movies, like we see her of a big ball of fire going in slow mo and everything, and Hiccup making googly eyes. Meet Kamikaze, one it's in a jail cell already, not the best. Not the best. And like she pretty much teases Hiccup and right. Like she's over. Like she's. I don't think I guess you can say cynical, and which could be a negative. A negative element. So I'll say that when we meet Kamikaze, she's already kind of flawed. You can get her thing.
Right.
Kamikaze is inherently a little bit of a narcissist. She thinks she's very good at everything, and she thinks that everyone else isn't as good as she is.
Yeah.
And she learns very quickly that that's not inherently the case. And I'm going to roll with that right into Astrid. Astrid is as well. She is a narcissist in the first movie. Not to as much a degree as Kamikaze. She's not as boastful about it, but she does think that she is better than all of the other teens.
Mm-hmm.
And she does have good reason to think so. I don't think anger is a flaw, personally. I think anger is an okay thing to have. I think anger is something that you should be and should have.
Yeah,
At times. I think where that anger comes from, and that anger comes from the fact that she thinks she should be winning at this competition, and the fact that she isn't bothers her. The fact that Hiccup, of all people, is somehow beating her bothers her because she knows where he is at on this level of what people are capable of, and she knows where she is at, and there's no way Hiccup could ever be that good in her mind. There's no way Hiccup could actually get to that point. For her, there's just no way to believe that because she is, again, in my opinion, a narcissist, and that is her. At least from the first movie, that is one of her inherent flaws. I feel.
I told you you'd say it more
probably
eloquently
the
than
biggest one.
Mm-hmm.
And to go back to a comment Rush made,
oh god,
when Astrid wants to run back to the village, you said it was for honor. No,
yeah, I may have misspoken.
I'm going to say that you're right. That is a fault of hers, but it's not necessarily honor. It's her unwillingness to change, and that is a fault for Astrid. That because she's younger, you would think, and you would hope that a young person would be more willing to change and wouldn't be so obstinate. Astrid is. Now she does change her mind eventually, sure, but she has to be shown first. No, that's not inherently. What HC is probably going to say is that inherently a flaw. No, not necessarily. Being stuck in your ways.
No, it's not necessarily
flaw,
No, it's not. I'm not going to say that it's a flaw. It's because when you say flaw, you usually don't agree with said character. But let's all be in Astrid's shoes. We just saw a Night Fury, a dragon we have so much about that it's so dangerous, and that your only way of living when you encounter it is hide and pray doesn't find you. Movies' worlds, not mine. So let's all be in these shoes for a second. What would you do if you all of a sudden saw a Night Fury in front of you, and one of your teammates, for lack of a better term, is there with him, calming him down. What would you do? I would run the fuck away and try and get someone to listen to me.
So HC,
Personally,
does that mean you're a Mary Sue, or would a Mary Sue already know what's gonna happen?
No, I'm not.
Bum,
I'm not
bum,
saying.
bum.
I'm not saying I'm a Mary Sue.
Personally?
I'm the furthest thing away. So I'm just saying it's not necessarily a flaw or something. You can look at it as a flaw. I'm not saying you couldn't, but at the same time, it's a flaw you can understand because I can see myself making that mistake and not opening up to something that I've been told my entire life is trying to kill me.
I mean, think of the situation though, right? Like, yeah, sure, you might run away from it, but I think me personally, and I think many others also, would be curious of it because this shrimp, someone who's not capable of hardly doing anything at all and is extremely clumsy and terrible at everything, this beast, this creature, just listened to him. Personally, I wouldn't run. I'd be standing there a little bit awestruck and a little bit curious at that point. But
and
take it out of that context. Take it. But no, she runs.
She shakes her head and she runs.
But before she runs, Sarah, it's not like Astrid to the Astrid runs. No, she does take a bit of time to solve the sin, and then, but again, she does, like you said, she's a warrior. She does what's right for the village. What's right for the village
what she
at
thinks
this point.
I should have said her duty, not honor, by the way, now that I think about it. She has duty to village, not honor. I mean, she might have honor.
Either way, I think it's, I think it more or less represents this thing, right? Like, she sees this as another way into the village's good graces, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a way for her to say, hey, I'm the best still. He's been faking it all along. That's, I think, her reason for going, not necessarily for any other reason. It's just Hiccup stops her. I think if she would have gotten to the village, you would have seen her trying to label Hiccup as the bad guy inherently and her as the good person.
Mm-hmm. That definitely plays into the narcissistic aspect, which I completely agree. She only asked in a desperate attempt, she asked who is he, and then once he introduces them, she runs. She could have asked, and honestly, I'm with you, Wolf. My next question would have been how. Like, I would have asked the five big questions: who, what, when, why, where, and how, exactly like that. But I completely agree with you. She does have the narcissistic aspect to her. She would have tried to become the best again, and if Hiccup hadn't kidnapped her, who knows? Would she have regretted it? We don't know.
I mean, that's actually something that, if I may credit us here, and because I do like Astrid, like I said, just saying all this stuff doesn't mean I don't like the character at all, people. But if I can credit her for something, is that though you could argument it kind of leads into the Mary Sue argument, but whatever, is that, first time she sees Toothless, she wants to run to the village and tell everyone about it. But then after Hiccup takes offline and they found the Red Deaths and everything, and she figures everything out, which again kind of like a Mary Sue thing that, they see how this nest works for one time and she automatically gets it. Like, yes, you could got it as well, but who's delivering the line? That's what I'm talking about. Not a major point, but a point nonetheless, I guess you could say. But anyway, when she's very excitable about running off and telling it to the village, and when the part Wolf loves so much, and rightfully so, when she asks Hiccup, we just made the biggest discovery of the Viking kind, and you want to keep it just to protect your pet dragon? He says yes, and she listens to him. So in a sense, this is a very good character development moment for a character that you could make the argument for a kids movie didn't need character development. So if I may credit Astrid for one, that's that.
Fair enough.
For a character that didn't need character development, I mean...
Oh, for the love of God.
No. I'm just saying... No. AC, let me get my thing out, okay? I don't... Because you're going to go on another 50-minute rant here. I just want to say, do you consider changing your mind about Dragon's character development or not? That's all I want to ask. because I'm pretty sure you need that character development.
You cut off a bit there.
I was saying, you say for a character that didn't need character development, would you consider changing their mind about dragons' character development or not? Because you definitely need that.
Well, obviously, I consider.
Okay.
Now you're the one who broke up.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, for the love of! I said that. Yeah, obviously, I'm referring to character development. That's what I said. What I meant though, it's not that this character didn't need character development. Astrid did need it. I'm just saying that every other movie would just say, you know what? We don't need this moment. Let's have Astrid run to the village. That's how we are going to. Maybe it was even in an early before we got the movie we have now. I don't know. I'm just saying not everyone would think that.
Okay.
And I'm giving.
I didn't get that from your argument, but I got you now. Okay. I didn't get that from your argument, but I got you now.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I didn't mean that she didn't need it. I'm just saying that probably any other movie could have made that, could have thought that and not went with this route. That's what I'm saying. Like if made it titles one draft less, maybe that's what would have happened.
Fair enough.
Are we good?
Yes, we're good. No, I just wanted to say it because the way you phrased it made me really confused, and I just had to say it. I just had to say it.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I'm sorry for misphrased that.
It could have also been you had a cutout that was perfectly timed that like removed one word that changed the. You know, I never know. I can never tell.
Shit, they're trying to censor us. Damn it.
Yeah, we get the full swear word in there. Where the hell are we now?
Yeah, what?
We could just end the episode characters now. Oh god. In the franchise, Murray Sue.
We're only halfway through the script and we're already an hour in.
Yeah. Wait. Okay. So let me just, before we move on to other characters, I just want to say that, you know what, in the movie I will say that Rush did think about, and also Wolf built on it, that Astrid could be narcissistic, which is not a good quality, so that doesn't make her a Mary Sue technically, but I'll just say this. In order to get that she's narcissistic, you need to dwell deep into her character, which is totally fine. That's why we have this podcast. We like doing this kind of stuff. But let's say you're a casual movie critic, you're going in, you're doing your job, right? You need to watch this movie and tell people what you thought about it. So when you're a person who just goes into the movie and with no intention to think about it afterwards, then what you don't necessarily look at Astrid. Not everyone, anyway, is going to look at Astrid and say, "Oh, she's narcissistic." That's so. Is they're going to look at that whenever we see these characters act together, Hiccup is a klutz, Fishlegs is too stuck with the facts, the twins are crazy and always fight with each other, Snotlout is too egotistical, and Astrid doesn't have a flaw that you can catch right away. So
I think people will latch on again. They'll latch on to the anger, and they'll see that as a flaw.
That's her most
visible. Still think that's
which is debatable.
Which I'll agree is debatable, but I think that's what people will latch onto, and they won't label her as a Mary Sue right away, right? It's when you look past the anger that you see people labeling her as potentially a Mary Sue. But again, the anger is the big key thing there. It's like people will latch onto that, and they don't latch onto where does the anger come from. And that's where you go. Once you dive deeper, you see, okay, the anger is coming from the fact that she does. Just whether it's justified or not, she does think she is better than all of her peers. She is, in my opinion, a narcissist.
Again, I'm not this.
She's just trying to defend his view.
Right? And I get what you're saying, right? Like, as a casual viewer, you might still see her as a Mary Sue. And I do agree, right? Like, I even agreed with the first part of the movie. Like, she does come off as a Mary Sue, right? Especially when you look at it, and I love that you stated that the movie is from Hiccup's perspective, because it more or less is. And from Hiccup's perspective, as you see him start to win Even as you see him start to be an annoyance and get in Astrid's way, you see the change in her from Hiccup's perspective. You see the anger. He focuses on that. He doesn't see her as this desired object as much anymore because he's seen this other side of her now. And as you go further along, you see more and more of that. And I love the fact that you stated that it was from Hiccup's perspective, because it does put a lot of stuff into perspective when you think of things that way.
My God, one of you guys, I'm actually... okay, one thing I'll say, this is regarding Race to Edge and Astrid, because on the one hand, she is given a few episodes where we see her flaws, like, Team Astrid, the first episode of season 2 of Race to the Edge is a perfect example for it, that, we see her being afraid. We know what pushes her buttons, and that's her family danger, and her not being there to protect them. So in that episode, I think I said it before, I'll say it again, this was a great episode to show that she's not perfect. She has flaws, and very human flaws. We can all identify with it.
You can even start earlier with the Flightmare episode.
Absolutely.
And now we are... Now, I forgot the name of the episode, but it was the one with Garth, the one where it's on Garth coming along with them. It's not out book. I forgot the name of the episode, but you know what episode I mean. This is Astrid coming back to being a Mary Sue. And if we're going on that thing I brought up, which Mary Sue sometimes mean they make mistakes, but they don't really hold accountable for them. Yeah, she's so persistent on bringing Garth along, even though everyone tells her no. And again, I guess you could say that adds to her Mary Sue-ness, I guess that's a phrase now, that everyone does what she's saying if she's just looking at them. Like, in this relationship, he says no. She gives him the look, he agrees. And then at the end, she actually says, oh, it was all my fault, and he tells her, no, it's not. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I'm sorry. No.
For one, I mean, yes, she didn't face the consequences, but we never... I mean, if we can't say that, the plot insert is a Mary Sue, then I feel like your personal definition as well, that's just to you. That doesn't fit the exact definition of the Mary Sue.
Yeah,
not facing the consequences.
Again, because for it, like the basic thing is that the characters been near flawless, all perfect. But people have brought us up, so I'm saying if we're looking at it through this perspective, that's what I'm saying. I'm not agreeing with this description of Mary Sue myself. The entire if the character make mistake, I'm not saying that I agree with it. But if you're looking at it through like this, then yeah, people can use this as an argument. That's what I'm saying.
So, other characters.
Other characters.
I swear, if we go back to this damn topic again, or this part of the script, we're already an hour and 8 minutes in, and we're not even halfway done with the script. So.
Okay, but
I think the last two will go fairly quickly.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think it will be.
I had coffee, not breakfast, so I'm starving.
Okay, and other characters in the franchise.
Neither have I, Rush. Neither
That's
have
true.
I. And I've had to take medicine as well, so.
Man, I. But
get on my level. We suffer for our work. That's how it works, Rush.
I suffer by listening to you for 2 hours. Wait.
That's right.
I shouldn't have said that out loud. I should not have said that.
Oh man.
Anyway.
We love you, Sean. We love you too, Sean. We love you too. But where was I? Okay. In terms of other movies, okay, I'm going to bring something up. I think Wolf may agree with this, but I'm not sure. I think Volca.
By the way, the topic is because we keep going off topic. This part of the script is if we could also say some other characters in the franchise were Mary Sue's or Gary Stu's, which HC, don't worry, I don't know either what the male version is called.
Because
it's either Marty Stew, Larry Stew, Gary Stew. I like Gary Stew, so I
Gary
think
Stu does
Gary
sound
Stew.
good. Yeah, good choice.
Let's go with Gary.
So if any of other characters are author inserts that are otherwise perfect, who do we think they are? And so HC, you said Valka.
In a sense, again, only should not being accountable for their mistakes kind of thing, because she is the only one that really dwells on. She left her family behind after Cloudjumper kidnapped her, and again, you can kind of see why she didn't come back. But I'm not saying I'm not saying I necessarily see here Valka as a Mary Sue, but I can see how people will get that impression.
Mm-hmm.
I can see where you're coming from, and again, I think it comes back to that we really need another definition besides Mary Stu. Again, Perfect Patty. There's my suggestion. And if you want the male equivalent, Perfect Larry.
You know something?
Weren't you a big
Patty...
stickler for alliterativeness? That's why we went with Perfect
Possibly.
Patty. Mary McGuffin was alliterative too. Just saying.
Actually, I'll
Perfect Patty just sounds better though.
I hate that it does. I know, I hate that it does.
Wolf, I'm sorry, but I'll go with Russia's suggestion because Perfect Patty reminds me of that SpongeBob episode where he falls in love with the sandwich, and that episode creeps me the frick out.
I mean, that's just your problem, though.
Yeah,
that doesn't
that's
mean
a personal problem.
I know, but it's still a problem. So
we'll let the audience decide.
Stop ignoring my feelings.
But back on topic, right, Valka. Like I said, I can see where you're coming from. I don't think she's inherently a Mary Sue, but I do think but I've stated before my issues with Valka many, many times. So you all already know how I feel about Valka. So
you know what?
I can definitely.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
I don't inherently disagree.
So we have our Perfect Patties. We have FoolproofFreds.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I'm trying to think. Sam.
I don't think you'll find too many other characters who would.
Yeah, nothing comes to mind.
Because the only other characters that are big enough are usually the villains, and they're villains. So it's like.
Yeah, so that's kind of a fault by itself.
Yeah,
you know something.
I mean, you could call Vigo a FoolproofFred because he's always one step ahead, right?
I was just about to say, because when you think about it, the reason he's a villain against a businessman, so it's not necessarily that he's a bad guy. If you want more information on this, go listen to the Are the Bad Guys Secretly Good Guys episode we did a while back, because that's a good episode, I think. #shameless plug. But what do I want to say? I can see people make the argument for Vigo. I think Voyager made it. I'm not sure.
Oh, I've always been for Vigo because like my biggest thing about him that I kind of actually got annoyed at when people were complaining about his character in the seasons was that he's always claimed that he's been a businessman, and that's exactly what he's been. Maybe he had some dirty underhand tactics, but it's like, he's supposed to be a villain. No, he's just a businessman who's going against what other people's ideals are. It's like, that's just exactly what he is. And so that was my big argument against them. I mean, sure, he's only considered evil because our heroes have the ideal that dragons shouldn't be sold. I mean, of course, you can go into a whole bunch of arguments because they're thinking
there's
creature,
technically
blah, blah, blah,
already.
But
go ahead.
No, I know what you're going to probably say. Like, there's the whole point that dragons have already been proven to be, something that shouldn't be sold, and he doesn't.
Oh no! I was going a little bit further back to like Vigo being the FoolproofFred thing. It is kind of already a definition trope for Vigo, and it's more so he's the invincible villain to a degree.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, where even though he loses, it's never really shown very concretely that the loss actually hurts him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could kind of argue that one a bit, but Again, way off topic, right? Not really the point of this
Anyway,
particular episode of the Berkcast.
Yeah, I mean, it kind
yeah,
of got us on the Gary
you
Stewart part,
know,
but
you want to skip to the next category? Oh,
yeah, I mean, we kind of all
and
agreed that
Yeah,
we can't find any true characters that are like that.
yeah,
yeah. You could point
we
out
can
different
see.
parts of characters, maybe, right? But again, that defeats
Yeah,
the
but
purpose, right?
Mm.
It's looking at the full
so
character.
mhm. So if you were read differently in order to avoid the trope, can I speak first as somewhat of a writer? You know, I'm writing scripts for college and everything. So can I go first
Go
on
ahead.
this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So here's how I see it. Just just because I open with I write scripts for college and everything, and I have a bunch of fan fictions. Like we agreed that I fictions than these two, and we kind of made fun of it at one point. But the thing is that not anyone like writing, even if you're doing this for studies or a living or something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have an authority on it or something. And you can always, I can tell you that each script I write for whatever class, I learn from it. And one of the things I learned is that if you're trying, which I'm always
Whoa.
trying to do, what, whoa?
There was just a weird audio glitch. Did you hear that, Wolf?
Yes.
Okay.
HC really
I,
broke up a lot right there.
And yeah, it came in
them.
super loud for some reason, and it really scared me.
Oh, okay. That's
I'm gonna have to like
that
put that in the description.
I'm
Attention
I'm
viewers,
trying to
around 1
lower
minute
it.
and 16, 1 hour and 16 minutes, there will be a audio glitch that
Oh,
might scare you.
oh. Okay, so basically what I'm saying, in writing you can always you get it right the first time, and even when you're trying to write characters who have flaws and everything, you always learn, because one of my things is that when I try to make my characters flawed in some movies is that they just became unlikable, and then I had to go back and fix them. So so in that sense, I'll say that yeah, I think it's kind of weird that I'm going to use this as an example, because I just said that Astrid doesn't have such visible flaws, but you know, Astrid in the first movie and the first movie in general, I'll even say the second one, are kind of ways to do this flawed character type of stories that, you know, they have a flaw, but you can understand where it's coming from. You can identify with that flaw. You so I guess the best thing I could say, that if I had to fix Heather in Riders of Berk, which you could argue, right, Race to the Edge did this anyway, is that give her something that you can identify with. Give, especially because we also said that she may be the character audience needs to project themselves onto. So I guess just give them more flaws, yes, but also make the flaws that everyone can have, and not something that screws up the entire thing because of mere stupidity. Although you can make a character stupid, I'm not saying you can't, but you have to be very careful in how you play it, because again, characters can become very unsufferable if you focus on a flaw for too long. Am I making any sense here, or am I just
No,
rambling? I didn't really host this
well,
thought.
maybe a little bit because you cut out. I'm just kidding. No, you were actually pretty clear there, but I see what you mean. No, and I completely agree. The hardest part I think about being an author is you want to write the character the way you envision them, and most of the time you don't envision, unless you inherently envision them with flaws. You don't want your character to have flaws. So, but when you do that, then you get your whole Gary Sue Mary Sue thing going on, and when you write the flaws, you want them to be. And I don't know if you said this word or not, relatable. That's the biggest thing that you want characters to be. So you can't have them, one, be perfect, because nobody's perfect. Two, you can't have them be overly flawed to a point where it completely drives their character. Because, well, some people are like that. The majority of people won't relate to a overtly...
It can make them unlikable.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it can
when
make
it comes
them...
to your protagonists, you don't necessarily want unlikable protagonists. In some situations you do, right? But it really depends on what you're
anti-heroes
going
is a
for.
big one where you do that, right? They're solely driven
by...
by...
I can tell you, this is actually a criticism I got. So I guess you could say I experienced it upon my own flesh. When one of my teachers, after they read the script for the movie I made last year, they read the script, and when they sat down on it with me, and when they gave me the criticisms, they said, your characters are not likable, and I can tell from the writing that you don't like your characters yourself. And on the one hand, that's kind of what I was going for, because it was supposed to be a universe of the world's not fair, so every character was supposed to be an asshole in some way. But I think I went too far with the joke. And I had to go back and try and rewrite it.
And that's a thing of writing in general, right? Is
yeah,
learning where the limit should be on how good a character should be and how bad a character should be. And learning to apply that limit and kind of where it is, because just because you see something as, okay, this character's not too perfect, this character's kind of flawed, you're the one who wrote them. They can easily, to you, appear flawed, while to everyone else, no, this character's too good still, even now.
Think about the Astrid narcissistic. From the surface level, you may not understand it until you look down deeper.
And
that's what I said.
Yeah.
The big question is should your audience have to do that?
Yes.
Some people will argue no, some people will argue yes. You're definitely going to find people who are on both sides of the argument.
I'll say it depends on the story. Because if let's say, if How to Train a Dragon was Astrid and not Hiccup, then this would have been a problem. Because then we would need to know that she's narcissistic and everything. But since it's not about Hiccup, it's not about her, it's about Hiccup, then you can again, so we can kind of pull it out of the rug and just say, maybe it depends on your perspective. So I'll say it depends on the story, it depends on the movie.
There's a lot of factors playing into it, because you sometimes can leave stuff up to the people who do the deep dive into it. Like, that's the stuff that you really want people to get these super, super underlying messages. Like, you can always throw in your underlying messages that you'll get on, the second or third time viewing. Because obviously, as a writer, you never want there to be blatantly obvious stuff on the you don't want everything to be out on the table after like a single viewing, and stuff like that. You want there to be hidden things that people want to focus on, because when you write a story or a movie or a TV show, you want people to actually be focused on it. If they aren't focused, they're not going to catch every little thing in there that makes a big difference. And so then it kind of takes away the joy of accomplishment, I should say, of actually putting it in the story. So I completely agree that there's some level of writing that needs to be done that's not completely in the foreground.
Yeah, so we kind of, I think, what will we do, if we were the writers? I guess just, in terms of Astrid, we kind of covered it. I think I kind of said something about Heather.
Don't even remember anymore.
It was an hour
ago.
I
think... something, I think we kind of we probably just said it, but in a different way, in a sense. We just didn't mention the character names as much as we probably should have, but I think the point got across.
Yeah.
Uh, is there anything specific you would do for those characters in their specific franchises, right? Like for Heather, for the show, is there anything specific you would do for that first instance we see of her in Riders of Berk? Anything you would change about how that show was written?
Maybe okay. One I would probably not make it that. Maybe if I'm looking at the episode as is, maybe how we said that every male character like kind of get the hearts for Heather when they see her. So maybe not that everyone gets the hearts for her right as they see her, but and I don't remember if she actually does this in the episode, but maybe if she would have flirted with them in order to get what she wanted, then maybe I could get it.
She did with Tough Nut and Snotlout and Fish Legs, it felt like, and she did with Hiccup as well. Like she did flirt with them a little bit, and I can see where you're coming from. Like they weren't immediately interested in her. Instead, she had to flirt to get more of their interest. Somewhat, I could see that.
Yeah,
Maybe like at least
if
for
she
like
were
Tough Nut
to,
and Fish Legs or Hiccup, maybe like she did that in order to get their interest and get what she wanted out of them. But a few of the characters, like
and
specifically Snot, were already
actually
interested from the beginning.
maybe
I
kind
can
of
see
also show her failing or something. Like I'm not saying to make her like one of those pathetic villains that are villains, but they are comic reliefs as well. I'm not saying that we should make her that, although that could have been funny. But I'm trying to think what else in that specific plot could I change that.
I think that little bit right there would be enough. And I think you would see a definite change in perspective when it comes to Heather and what people thought of her from that particular episode. But I think the show did good enough when they brought her back in Race to the Edge at making her a flawed character.
Uh-huh.
So there's inherently there's not a lot to change about her character in writing since the show kind of already did it for Heather.
Okay. So anything else we want to, because I think this went on for quite a while.
Been a while since we've had a long episode.
Yeah, we had a lot to talk about though. I think this is probably one of the most
I'm taking full credit.
Yeah, probably one of those the most intense conversations we had on this podcast.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't write the script, I'm taking full credit. Like I said, you're welcome.
What can I say except you're welcome? You see, we started with one. Awesome. Anyway, so I guess that's it for this episode of the Berkcast. We hope you enjoyed. Do you think Astrid and Heather are Mary Sue's, or do you think any other character could be a Mary Sue or a Gary Sue in the How to Train a Dragon franchise?
Or
whatever you think.
Patty, or what was it? FoolproofFred.
Yeah, FoolproofFred. That's better. Yeah, that's what it
was. FoolproofFred.
Remember, those are our definitions now, people. Make it happen. Make those popular. Get them on TV tropes.
Yep. We should add TV tropes.
And forget the Mucket and Bulch. That never happened.
Well, whatever you think about you can tell us all about it in the comment section below. On Tumblr, where we are known as Berkcast Team. On Twitter, where we are known as Berkcast with a capital B, capital C. And we are all on the How to Train a Dragon Discord server. So until next time, I was HC.
I was Rush.
And I've been Wolf.
And we will talk to you all next time. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.